So my problem with that is, because I went on the website and I compare, for instance, what I find at Transparent Jeffco, where I know exactly what they spent. I can find out how much they spent on fixing a busted door. So I go to the state of Colorado website, I might see, oh, there was one $15,000 for late fees. Now, it's in no context, so I have more questions. Whereas I look at Jefferson County, they put it all out there, they provided the information.
That's right.
Why can't we get that at the state level? And they only spent $3,400 doing it.
We can get it at the state level, but we have to have an administration that wants to see that happen and gives direction to, for instance, the state controller's office to make that happen. The hindrance came because, as you mentioned, there was a part of the bill where it talks about where access to each individual transaction is likely to hinder than foster the goal of accountability and transparency. The system may provide access to aggregated sum totals. And so they've taken this blanket, this one portion of the bill, and used it as a loophole to only provide aggregated sum totals generally all across the board. And
so really, they're sort of in violation of the spirit
they're violating
of this law.
The spirit of the law. Exactly.
And the only people, the people who get hurt with that are taxpayers.
Right.
What kind of feedback, Commissioner, what kind of feedback have you gotten on your website, Transparent Jeffco? Because, by the way, we should let people know there's a whole lot more on there besides just individual transactions. You have, there's access to county commissioner meetings where it's an integrated agenda so people can provide feedback during a meeting. I mean, really, you guys have done a lot to restore trust between citizens and their government. So what kind of feedback are you getting from voters, from citizens, residents of Jefferson County?
Our feedback's outstanding, positive in nature, and obviously some of it's constructive in that, hey, you ought to try this or try that and make this, refine this tool or refine that tool. So it has been just an overwhelming success, and I think the more, now it's internally it's become quite an initiative to continue with making it better and improving it, as opposed to just throwing it out there, having something in aggregate and then leaving it alone. Now, the IT folks are fully engaged. You may not expect information technology people to be, making transparency one of their priorities, but they do. And so that comes from the top. It is a commitment to open government, and our folks really feel empowered to continue to improve the website and make it as user-friendly as possible.
Yeah, I gotta imagine that it is a huge source of pride for Jefferson County right now. I mean, Jefferson County, I think, budget-wise, one of the largest, certainly in the state of Colorado. I mean, you're bigger than some states, I'm sure, and some countries. And you managed to do it for $3,400, all internally. It's got to be a huge source of pride.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And we've taken this our presentation of Transparent Jeffco to the National Association of Counties. There we did and actually interviewed all of our elected officials, put them on a video, and presented that to the National Association of Counties in the hopes that other governments across the country would recognize that, number one, there's no fear in doing this. Number two, it's relatively inexpensive, even for a government our size of about just under 3,000 employees, $500 million a year in budget without utilities or anything like that. If we were a company, we'd be about $1.4 billion in assets. So we're a large organization. We're obviously not nearly as large as the state. However, it can be done with reprioritization of the initiatives and goals within your organization, and relatively inexpensively. And once you start, I think what we discovered was that once we put our checkbook on, which is, we're about a year, our first birthday is here in about 2 weeks, maybe about 3 weeks. We put our checkbook on there. And in 2006, we had nearly 30,000 entries. So if you can put your checkbook on there, it's not interactive just yet, you can search it. And that might be the wrong term, but still, once it became, our folks became empowered to continue to seek new ideas and new ways of putting more information, easier access to elected officials and the meetings and all types of different events. and documentation. So it's become quite its own energy and positive dynamic force internally.
And I understand your checkbooks are I think they're in a PDF form,
yes.
and it's searchable that way, looking to move into something a little bit easier to search the way your procurement cards are. I mean, that's just an amazing database. And then pretty soon, from what I understand, contracts will be coming online as well.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it really is an incredible website and should be a model for everybody else to follow. Now, let's move to the state, which, okay, their first attempt was, you know, it's out there, but they don't have to be in compliance until January 1. So is this the best we're going to have?
I'm afraid it is, because I have asked that question, if they do plan to take it further and actually go to the point of doing what the bill specifies in terms of providing the individual expenditures. But they have expressed that they have no further plans to expand the website, and it will remain as it is. I do plan to follow up on that, however, and
going forward, how are you going to address this situation? Because clearly it is aggregated, and I don't want to say you can't find any information, because that would be unfair, because some folks have done some hard work to get that up there. There is information there, but for instance, as a taxpayer, I would like to know why the state, and I could be wrong on this, I'm pulling this off the top of my head, just playing around in that site, I think it was something like $87 million in travel. I would like to know why we spent that and what I got for that. For instance, I can go to Jeffco and I know that they spent, you know, $1,000 fixing a whole bunch of doors, and I know they probably need those fixed. So I understand it. I'm not trying to make a judgment about the expenditure, but when I look at it, I want to know what I got for my $87 million, or for instance, $3 million in bank fees. I want to know what I got for it, and that information just isn't there.
It's not there, and unfortunately, besides using the aggregated totals, they've used confusing terms such as reappropriated transfers, intergovernmental distribution, to highlight what a $200,000 expenditure might be. We need to go deeper than that, and we can do that as a state. I know that we can do that. We just have to have the willingness to do it. Yeah,
there are things like JVC entries. I don't even know what that means. JVC, journal, or cash transfer. I'm thinking, and it's a couple of $1 million, and you're looking at that going, I have no idea. And if I don't know what it is, then my guess is there's somebody else that doesn't know what that is.
That's exactly right. It shouldn't be that hard.
What about all of the departments going forward? Are they all included in the state database?
Most of, well, currently as it sits, yes, they are. However, Higher Ed and Department of Transportation, if we get down to the individual expenditures, would not be included. So we do need to move further in that regard.
So we need to do that. What about, here's the other thing too. I know that the state of Colorado has to comply with the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the ARA funds. And so they have to provide transparency there. Is there any way to coordinate those two? I mean, are we talking about two entirely separate processes here?
That I can't answer. I'm not sure about that, Amy.
I mean, it would just seem to me, it seems like we're spinning our wheels a little bit on this, and we get more transparency from the federal level than we do within our own state.